Hello, friends, and welcome to what can only be described as a bumper midweek Kings of Anglia Ipswich Town podcast. There's so much to talk about today. Of course, the show brought to you in association with manscaped.com, and that's something we're going to talk about at some point. Ross just scraping his mic down the table. Ross, good audio for the start of the pod. Nice one, very professional. I'm delighted, of course, to say today, with so much to talk about, I've got three titans of the Ipswich Town coverage game with me. And I'm going to start with the man who had the blue tick before any of us and was at Colchester last night, lapping up the action. The original and best Big Porker, editor of the Kings of Anglia magazine, former editor of the Greenland. He never mentions that at all. Former coach of the year, Suffolk FA 2009, 8, something like that. And a bloody good bloke all round. Mike Bacon, how are you?
Well, what an introduction. Absolutely correct, of course. And you forgot that I was also you've also forgot that I scored the winning goal in the 1996 Suffolk Under-14 County Cup final. But that's just a sidebar. But I'm absolutely fine, thank you.
There's no way you were 13 in 1996, Mike. I'm sorry, I'm not having it.
Did I say 96?
You meant 56. And also, Mike, formerly one of the best cycle speedwayists in the entire country.
Yeah, well, the accolades continue to roll. 1984 British Under-21 champion. Now, there you go. Not champion, sorry, finalist. I said champion for a minute. Finalist. So there you go. That you can start working the age out from that.
Those dates don't tally up now. And also, if you're watching on video, you'll be able to see one of our favourite features of talking to Mike is his bookshelf, because he's got a myriad of books, very well read, is our Mike. And he always likes to turn around ones that he's kind of into at the time. So behind you, Mike, facing us, is that Kieran Dyer I can see in the middle?
Kieran Dyer, yes, that's Kieran Dyer in the middle. His new book, which was out a couple of years ago. Yep.
Your football friend Kieran Dyer. And then that's Ty Woofenden, is it? Speedway at the bottom?
Well, you're showing your great knowledge of all sport there, as Mr. Warren, of course, also knows the Raw Speed, it's called. Ty Woofenden, Raw Speed. Yes, that's I bet you can't see what the top one is.
Again, it looks like another Speedwayist, but I can't tell from here.
Crouchy. Peter Crouch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Peter Crouch, quite right, Hutchie. It's the man who does the whatever he does. It's quite funny, actually. Peter Crouch book. If you haven't, that's actually I was actually given that one. I don't think I'd have bought it myself, but I haven't read it. It's actually quite humorous. Outstanding,
an eclectic mix of sporting books. Mike, you're going to be joining us hopefully a lot more occasions this season. Obviously, Stu at the moment is sunning himself down at his 19-bedroom Cornish holiday home, so you're stepping in to cover pre-season, and fingers crossed you'll be around much more on the pod this season as well, and also maybe presenting a few spin-off Mike Bacon specials. You are, I think it's fair to say, the most popular member of the podcast, because every time you appear, we get comments saying we need more bacon, #bacon and chips. So great to have you with us, Mike. I'll come back to you in a minute. Eclectic-wise, if you're talking eclectic, you have to go to the boy Roscoe next, because he is a mix and match assortment of things. Roscoe, last night you were game day host extraordinaire, speaking to fans before and after the game at Colchester, and getting papped and getting asked for selfies, which I think officially makes you the most popular member of the current crew. How are you, my friend?
Very well. I've dried off a little bit now. I got very wet in the first half. It decided to chap it down the first 10 minutes of the game, so everything got wet. My squashes got wet, so I had to quickly eat them. But yeah, I asked for the photo. No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
That was the boy Chris, wasn't it?
Yes,
shout out to Chris. Thanks for boosting Ross's ego. That's fantastic. So there you go. And then finally, the man with the most Twitter followers. So I guess it's actually the biggest deal here, and a blue tick. Is Tiger around today? Hutch Hogan, Andy Warren?
Not today. He's patrolling the perimeter this morning. Some garden politics going on. He's
looking for trouble, is he?
Well, trouble finds him. He's an innocent kind of. He's caught in the crossfire kind of thing. He's not. He doesn't dominate the garden area. The poor lad. There's a lot of threat. He just sits and hopes that nobody comes near him. That's his day.
Does he? I mean, if he has to, does he throw down? Does he throw some paws?
I'd love to watch it. I hear the noise. I don't know how it. the way he comes charging back into the house and jumps straight on my lap after it suggests to me that he might not come off best in these. But no, he's a good lad. Ross, what got really wet that you had to eat quickly?
Squashies.
What on earth are squashies?
You know. I ain't got a packet. You know the drumsticks.
Yeah.
So you've had them before. I'm sure I've had them in the office, and I've given it to you, and probably Mike's had them as well.
You don't want a soaking squashy. And the other thing you don't want to do with squashy is leave it in the car when it's really hot, because then it becomes an amorphous blob. Anyway, boys, we're digressing. We're here to talk about Ipswich Town. It's great to have you all with us, and it was great, I must say, probably for you last night. What the hell is that noise? Oh, we'll stop now. It was great, I'm assuming, for you boys to be at Colchester last night. I was sitting in this very room, putting pictures on pages and running things in, doing the non-glamorous stuff. But you boys were enjoying what can only be described as an absolute thriller at the Community Home Stadium. Hutchie, let's start with you.
I'm enjoying this pre-season. It's
incredible.
It's a gear or two up from what you normally expect in pre-season games, and I'm convinced that's because fans are back in grounds and players have been playing in front of nothing for a year. It's been miserable, and I just don't think the players can help themselves. But and it's a good thing. It's a great thing. But to play that little bit more intensely than they normally would in pre-season. We've seen so many games that kind of drift and are interesting in like little 10-minute spells, but we're getting good hours out of these games. And last night was even more added spice. Last night, of course, with all the ex-Ipswich players in the Colchester team, and I'm sure Paul Cook's having an influence on pre-season as well, because he wants high intensity. So it's all coming together, and it's all creating very, very watchable football in the summer, which is great.
There was clearly, going into the game last night, there was only really one talking point: #narrative, the return of Chambers and co. To face the Blues. How did that all go last night, Mike? Was there added spice, do you think, as a result of that? 4 Town members from last season in the youth squad, 8 overall former Blues there. What did you make of that last night?
I really enjoyed it, and I think Colchester are really up for it. I imagine Chambers probably banging a few walls in the dressing room. Come on, lads, let's get out here, that type of stuff. I mean, Alan Judge was just excellent. I mean, he was excellent throughout the whole game, and he put in a cruncher on poor old Dobra, I think, halfway through the first half. And poor old Dobbs didn't really know I'd hit him. But that sort of summed it up, really. There was no sort of just tippy-tappy passed it around. Tommy Smith's header was a bullet, you know. I mean, it was just, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like Andy was saying, you know, it's just been a... It's been a really. I think we were talking last night. I said this is like an 80% league match. You know, 75%, 8%. It's not far off a league match. It's not there because obviously then they make a 50,000 million substitutions at 60 minutes and no one knows what's going on. But for a good hour or so, it's a good intense game. Yeah, I mean, I thought the Ipswich boys in the Culture team, or former Ipswich boys, I thought they're great. I mean, they all gave it their all. Freddie was probably the quietest of all of them, but I mean, Tommy Smith was great. Chambo was brilliant. Got great reception. Ipswich fans did themselves absolutely proud, you know, giving Chamber the right reception when he went. I think he went for a corner at about the 25th minute, and I think I'm going to sing the song now that they sung to him as he walked up. I better not. But anyway, they gave him a great reception, and that was nice to see because Chambers deserves that. Ipswich fans, you know, showing some class towards a player they know gave everything. Cole Skews, of course, came on. And we had the old Scoozy sort of chant go through the Ipswich ranks, which again was lovely. So the Ipswich players were really up for it, and they made it a fascinating game. It's like Andy said, I was at the Palace game on Saturday as well. I've seen 2 games. I've thoroughly enjoyed both of them. I haven't come away thinking, oh God, only one more to go till the real stuff starts. I really enjoyed it.
Some of the respect levels there towards Chambers was great. Like when they all came out to warm up, Chambers was waiting. He held back and kind of waited for the Ipswich players to come out, and they all shook hands. When he saw Toto, the smiles on their faces when they kind of looked at each other, and just ran up and hugged each other. That was great. Full time, the same. Ipswich fans wanted a fist pump at the end. Bit of went up. Obviously, he didn't do it. Polite applause, and then more handshakes and hugs as they left the pitch. A brief handshake with Cook. Not an awful lot more than that, but yeah, it was nice because obviously so many of them have gone to Colchester, but this was nice in that they were able to get just a little bit of the reception they really should have got when they played their final game against Fleetwood. and maybe it just about closes the door on that kind of era, which wasn't particularly closed in the way that it should have been. So it was nice.
Of course,
of course, that goes back to the Chambers with the Our Town, Our Team poster thing that's gone down the Cobbold stand. And of course, being someone of a certain age who remembers practically everyone on that photo apart from Sir Alf Ramsey, to see Chambers on there, I think is great, because you could have easily have wiped the last 10 years off the Ipswich Town memory bank, quite frankly. So it's great that Chambers is on there. He deserves to be on there, top 10 Ipswich Town appearance holder. And as last night, good reception for him.
Ross not convinced, but we won't get into that. Roscoe, you obviously with the fans last night, and it's nice to be able to say that you are with fans. You were doing all the kind of sights and sounds of the game. What was it like last night? 1,500 Town fans in the away end at Colchester. Just talk us through a little bit of the buzz. Mark Ashton went before the game, didn't he? Went and fist bumped everyone, which is again, he's playing an absolute blinder. 10 out of 10 for Ashton so far. What was it like last night?
That's what you love about football, isn't it? That's what makes football, is fans, the atmosphere, the chanting, all the songs. Mike was alluding to the Luke Chambers song. Once again, we won't sing it. I did actually record that, and I was going to have it part of the video, but then I thought, I've got to bleep it, and that's more effort than it's worth. So I just left it for the archive. That could be, played later on. But that's just fantastic. And seeing Mark Ashton, I had to quickly run. I spotted him. I went, no, got to catch this. So I quickly ran and got him nicely fist pumping. And I don't know if you saw on the video, there's a mum who had maybe a newborn baby. Yeah. I couldn't get the shot, but I think he must have tapped it on the head or something.
Like a politician. He was almost kissing babies.
Kissing babies.
But he is doing a fantastic job, and I must say he always looks immaculate, which is important. Fantastic last night. There's some lovely pictures as well of Chamber embracing Kane Vincent-Young after the game, which was tremendous. Boys, we've talked there around the issues around the game. Let's talk about the game itself. Hutchie, I want to start with the good. We're going to talk good and bad because they were both last night. Give me some good from last night. What stood out?
Armando Dobra and the two strikers getting off the mark. They're the two pluses for me. Dobra, rightly singled out by Francis Jeffers after the game, described him as special. He always plays with a bit of confidence, Dobra. But this pre-season, he seems to have got a bit more, just this little bit extra control in him, which is what he needed. He's certainly sticking his hand up to tell Paul Cook, look, I'm here. Think of me. Pick me, and he's doing everything he needs to do. He's driving inside with the ball, clever touches to make space for himself to try and make things happen. I think he enjoyed playing against Colchester's back three because it maybe gave him that little bit more room to pick it up in the wide area behind the kind of left wing, back wing, or whatever you want to call him, and drive inside. But he was being kicked all over the pitch all night and showed some really good discipline to carry on playing. Mike's alluded to that little flashpoint with a really quite heavy tackle from Alan Judge, actually, which Dobra kind of bounced up and wasn't happy with at all. Chambers needed to step in with a strong kind of forearm to no, let's end this. And it looked like for a second that it might get a little heated, but Chambers and Dobra kind of left the half with Chambers' arm draped around him, having a friendly chat. So yeah, I was really impressed with him, and just for Piggott and Bon to score. We needed some goals from the strikers. So yeah, plenty of positives, and I'm sure the boys can pick out some more as well.
Just before we move on, Hutchie, is anyone having a better pre-season than Armando Dobra in terms of he started the pre-season not even training with the first team? He was quickly elevated to the first team picture, and now you'd have to say he's going to be pushing for a start, wouldn't you? The way he's performing.
Yeah. In terms of kind of pushing themselves forward, I'd have to agree with that. I guess the new signings are kind of all doing what they hoped they would do. You're probably right. Of kind of the players that were here already, he's the one that's pushed his case more than any of the others.
I am frequently right, Hutchie, as you know. Just don't ask the wife about that. Mike, give me some more positives.
Some more positives from last night. What I've seen the last two games, I like the look of Harper.
Yes,
the
dream.
He's got a nice touch in the middle of the park. Very composed, very calm. He's going to hold that set, sort of holding midfielder type position really well. I think he's very good. And Wes Burns, I mean, he's to bring someone like him on with 10 minutes to go, he's fast enough from the start, let alone when everyone's already had 80 minutes. So he destroyed culture the last 10 minutes there with not only the goal, but also some great runs. Wes Burns looks very exciting. But as Andy said, I mean, the 2 strikers getting off the mark is great. That's just what confidence they needed. I like Pickett. I've said this already.
You're a big Piggott fan, Mike. That's coming across loud and clear.
I'm a big Joe Piggott fan. I think he's the type of centre forward I like. He's prepared to come for the ball. He's prepared to play a bit of football. He doesn't just stay in the box waiting for crosses. He can win his fair share of headers. I think he's going to be a great favourite. And Macaulay Bonne, of course, who I first saw at Colchester United back in the day when he was only a kid. He's come back. He's a man now, and I thought he showed up really well yesterday. Actually, I thought he showed up really well. So it's going to be really interesting come the first match of the season. On earth. Cook sorts all this out because he's got players coming in. Fraser keeps doing a good job on the left. I think he's nice and steady, gives a nice bit of balance to the team. Overall, I think it's great. I think it's been some good positive stuff. Of course, we haven't even seen Evans, Chaplin, is it? And Edmundson. And yes, there's 3 players we haven't even seen yet. So
We'll come on to that. We'll come on to that in due course. Obviously, Town have made signings, and we'd normally have started the show with the sexy stuff. But I think the game last night was so good. I wanted to start by talking about that, and then we'll talk more about the signings. Mike, are you aware that Joe Piggott, that the man you're such a fan of, actually shares your nickname? He's the Big Porker 2. The KOA Army have christened him the Big Porker number 2 after you. You're obviously the original and best, but he is.
I was going to say he's number 2. Yeah, that's okay. Absolutely
number 2. Roscoe, your boy Bon got on the score sheet last night. Give me some more positives. Obviously, you were bursting with pride, I assume, when he rifled that home.
Yeah, and of course, all the goal scorers who played for Colchester before they didn't celebrate, did they? It was sort of just like, all back, give me a hug, whatever. But it was just good to see goals because the last pre-season games, there's not been any goals really, have there? Palace was only a 1-0 defeat. Dartford was only a 1 goal. Bury was at 1-1, then penalties. So it's good to see goals. Janoy, I think he's the unsung hero here. Janoy Donation, I think skipper as well in the first half, second half, and I think that's and the away kit. Well, we haven't mentioned the away kit, have we?
What did you make of it?
It's grown on me. It's grown on me a little bit. When I saw John Edmundson was wearing it for his signing pitch, and I didn't like it. I was just like, no, it doesn't look good. But then in person, in the flesh, I like it. It's clean. It's simple. It's classy. Happy with it.
It needs the black when you've got the kind of the shorts with it and the socks, and then you've got black numbers on the back, and you've got the patches on the sleeves. It kind of fills in the gaps. It looks a lot better in real life. They always do. They always look so much nicer in the flesh, as it were, or in the Thermodex breathable technology or whatever football shirts are made of. Aero cool.
Before we move on to the bad, just for people who weren't watching last night, and apparently the live stream was a disaster last night. So if you weren't at the ground, you probably won't have seen much of the game. Where did Bon play? Because obviously going into the season, there's a talk about what Cook does with the strikers. Piggott clearly is probably going to be the first choice lone striker. We saw Bon and Norwood almost in a 4-4-2 at Dartford, didn't we, at the start of the season? So where was Bon last night?
So I think you're right. I think of the strikers, I think Piggott is the one who will start. But if he does go with 2 strikers as such, I think Piggott will play the more kind of ever so slightly withdrawn role, and not. I wouldn't call him a number 10 because he's still looking to get forward higher up. But he's the one that drops. He's the one that comes deeper. So I asked Francis Jeffers about this after the game, and he said that Bon. Norwood and Caden Jackson, who got a good 25 minutes in this game, are kind of on the shoulder players. So they're the strikers, and if there's 2 of them on the pitch, the only one of them that he thinks that can come deep and maybe play the more withdrawn role is Piggott. So I think Piggott's a nailed on starter. It's just whether they go with another of these strikers, which I'd guess they might at the moment, or whether Chaplin's arrival means that Fraser can play the 10, or it's. I think we're going to learn a lot more from the Millwall game at the weekend, because I'm led to believe that's going to be a very much used as the dress rehearsal. So I think what we see against Millwall is going to be very close to what the team is.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get on to the permutations of the signings and who might start on opening day in due course. Let's go back to the game last night, though, Hutchie. Give me some bad. Now, I know we talked about the kit. Obviously, Thomas Holy was clad in that ridiculously sexy pink goalkeeper's kit, which proves my point that Town should have a pink away kit, I think. But I suppose reading from what you read online, actually wrote online, excuse me, grammatically correct.
I writted it.
You writted it, Bar. I guess Thomas Holy would have to be included among the bad, would he not?
Yeah, he didn't have a very good night. I don't think he enjoys playing at Colchester. When he was there in the EFL Trophy, you'll remember he was lobbed from the halfway line by Ryan Clampin in a trophy game. He didn't have the best of nights. Ipswich didn't deal with balls into the box particularly well at all night. But Holy didn't cover himself in glory in that area either. I've watched the only one of I haven't seen Smith's goal back yet, but I have seen Newball's, and for a start, Newball's given a ridiculous. How much space does a man want? He probably had 3 or 4 yards either side in all 4 directions around him to get up and head the ball, but he's also beaten a man who, when his arms are outstretched, is 8 foot. He's beating him to the punch there, so I think Thomas would think he would have done better there. And then the third one, is almost like a comedic skit with the thing that Holy did well all night actually was coming out to meet through balls. He had a couple of really good ones in the first half to catch the ball in his box, and then another one where he essentially dribbled to the halfway line with the ball at his feet. Fans love that. But this one, he's met a ball that's come from the opposite goalkeeper. He's then kind of kicked it vertically up in the air. He's gone to head it, but it's kind of come off his shoulder / chest to try and get it into touch. But Alan Judge was there and he swept it in. It's not one he'd want to see again. We already knew he was kind of firmly second choice goalkeeper this summer, and you can't say that he's made his case any further for a starting spot in this one, sadly, because it is a shame, because he's a lovely bloke and clearly he's a very popular man. Like, he got a huge ovation at the start of the game, and he's popular with the fans, but yeah, I think he's going to have to get used to a fair amount of time on that substitutes bench from now on.
Hope it's a big bench if he's going to be there all the time. Mike, last night, inevitably, after someone makes a rick, a lot of fans on social media saying we can't go into the season with Holy as the backup keeper. Are you happy taking Holy in as number 2? Because clearly Hadley's going to be number 1, but there are going to be times, almost inevitably, where they're going to need a backup keeper to step in. Do you think Town need to go out maybe and look for number 2 now? No,
I think Holy's quite adequate as a number 2. I don't think there's anything wrong. It's a lack of judgment. He's just gone from sort of hero to zero. I mean, the first half, as Andy alluded to, he sort of dribbled the ball, caught it on his chest, went round one, dribbled up the pitch, cleared it down the field. Ipswich fans are going bonkers and cheering and shouting. And then, obviously, the third goal, he's tried to do exactly the same thing and made a complete, terrible. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. I mean, to be fair, Alan Judge, I think unfair on Judge. He finished that rather aplomb. I mean, that was some angle he was at. He didn't just chip it over his head. He had to curl it, and he still had 2 players going back towards the goal to try and clear it. It was very good. It was a great finish. So, do we want another goalkeeper? No, we don't need another goalkeeper. Our number 1, which I can't say his name, Hladky. Andy, you'll help me here.
Hladky.
All right, Hladky. I saw him against Palace, obviously, and he looked more than adequate. More than adequate. Looks a very good, solid goalkeeper. That's what you want. You don't need half a dozen goalkeepers unless you're Manchester City. We don't need half a dozen goalkeepers. Holy, he makes a rick, but he's not going to make that sort of rick every game. And if Hadley is not in,
Tony Hadley,
not Tony Hadley, whatever. If he's not in goal, then and we've got Holy, I'd be quite happy with that, because I don't think Holy. He'll know from last night. And I know people keep saying, he's always making these mistakes every 5 minutes. Well, I don't think he's making mistakes every 5 minutes. He just makes some mistakes. I don't know many goals who don't make mistakes, but clearly he's done himself very few favours last night. He's made Paul Cook's decision very comfortable. Bear in mind, he's got a lot of decisions to make, Paul Cook. That goal he won is now fairly an easy one to make. But it wouldn't worry me to have Holy as a backup keeper, no.
I'd agree with that. I don't. They've had so much else to do in the transfer market this summer. It just seems, unless someone comes in with a like a really good offer for Thomas, like that actually helps the club financially. He's absolutely fine as a backup goalkeeper. And look, he hasn't made those mistakes like week in, week out, has he? He was an average, slightly above average, perhaps League One goalkeeper for 2 years for Ipswich, and I think he's fine.
I refuse to believe, Mike, that you can't pronounce Hladky because you spend your most Thursdays writing down the most unpronounceable, unspellable names in Speedway. So Hladky is surely fairly straightforward for you. It's certainly not for Rossi, as we know. But Rossi, I'm not going to get you to say it because he didn't play last night. But give me some more negatives from last night, things you didn't like. It sounds like the boys have already kind of mentioned that they were struggling to pick up from set pieces. Is that a concern for you?
Yeah, but then you look at the Colchester back line, they're very big, aren't they? Big defense, like Tommy Smith is we all dream a team of Tommy Smiths. That's how the song goes. A bit cleaner than the Luke Chambers song. You got Frank Nouble, whatever. He's a big lad. He's a massive lad. Clack, back in the day when he played for us.
Aren't they going to be facing big lads in League One, though, who are kind of technically superior to what they faced last night?
Once again, it's a position that they're needing the strength, and we'll get on to one of the signings. But I think that experienced head, we had Corey Ndaba and Luke Wolfenden starting this game, and Corey Ndaba is still very, I don't know if you can call him raw anymore, because he's now getting to an age where he's got to be playing week in, week out, really. I think he needs a loan maybe to League Two, possibly. But it's good to see that he's been given a chance to play in these pre-season games, but maybe because we haven't got any other centre-halves, maybe. But I think that's one thing we're going to have to look at is mere set pieces. We don't, because as you said, there's a lot of big lads in League One, so that could be a worry about conceding set pieces.
It doesn't worry me too much, if I'm completely honest. It's a pre-season game. It's where you make these mistakes. I don't think there's any scenario where Corey Ndaba and Luke Wolfenden are the starting centre halves. I think I think both Toto and George Edmundson would upgrade Ipswich in that regard. So yes, it wasn't good enough. Giving the free kicks away in the first place, and it was mostly free kicks rather than open play for crosses into the box, but giving them away in the first place is something that could be cleaned up. Alan Judge's delivery was brilliant all night. Not always the case in an Ipswich shirt, but in Colchester Blue, his delivery was brilliant. So it wouldn't be something that worries me overly much at this stage.
Before we move on to the sexy stuff, the signings, Mike, just one final thing. You spoke to Luke Wolfenden after the game last night. There's a lovely picture on our website, and I'll put out on our social media of you and Luke sharing a joke. How was Luke after the game? Because he's a very laid-back character, isn't he? What did you chat about?
He's very laid-back character. Yes, I've got the story going up later today. I mean, do you want me to give it all away? I can do, but I mean, yeah, he's. I like Luke Wolfenden. In fact, I've got a magazine here of Luke Wolfenden. It's funny, isn't it? Because I just had this here. Look, it's you can't see it if you're listening to it, I suppose. But there you go. There's the Wolf on the last Kings of Anglia magazine. New one will be coming out in September. There's enough of that plug. Anyway, yes, I spoke to Luke Wolfenden after the game. He sort of sorted out, and he came out of the classic. I just said to him, I said, well, you're one of the few left. From the summer. And he said to me, and he just went, yep, I was playing that record in my car on the way in. What's it, Elton John? I'm still standing. So brilliant from him. He laughed, he laughed that off and just said, yeah, I'm still standing. He said, it's great, isn't it? And he said, it's a completely, he'd had a chat with the gaffer, as he said, in the summer. He's still here. Obviously, he's loving it. He says night and day. Is these exact words, how he described things now and how they were. What I like about Luke Wolfenden is he's very carefree, sort of. It's me, is it? Talking to
there we go. Yeah, that's the picture.
There's a very.
Tell us the joke, Mike. What was happening here?
Well, it's funny. We're actually talking about the Witches, Ipswich Witches.
No, you weren't. Come on.
Last heat decided. No, that was probably the Elton John song, because I started to join in because obviously I like a little sing song, and I then said, "What's your favourite Elton John track?" And we talked about Crocodile Rock and stuff. And we were sort of really getting into it, and then we decided to get back on the football. But so we have a little sing song of Elton John records at that point. But no, seriously, He's very laid back. What I like about Luke is you almost feel he says, well, look, it's football. It's just a job. I'm going to do my best, give 110% all the time, but you ain't going to freak me out. Some people are so intense, especially young players. They can be very intense. They take everything personally. Everything's a big drama. I'm not saying all players, but some young players can. And every little thing is the manager's not being nice to me, or I'm on the bench, and you can imagine Wolfen just goes, that's the way it is, and I'll do, but he's a really good guy. He's a nice guy, and he's a decent footballer as well. He's still quite young. I don't know how old Luke is. Must be at 21 or something. So, and clearly Paul Cook, he started him now the last 2 games. So he's yeah. So yes, we had a good chat.
I think he's nailed on. And just again, a little peek behind the curtain before we move on, Mike. You were on player duty post game Palace on Saturday as well, and you spoke to the dream, Raheem Harper. I think people would be interested just to know what he's like as a lad. He described himself as a beast, didn't he, to you?
He did. Yes, he did. Exactly what he said. We were talking about how Ipswich fans see himself. He's a very confident young man. He's very confident, actually. That's how I sort of, my first impression. He knows what he wants. He knows where he wants to go. He sees Ipswich Town as a great stepping stone, perhaps a bit unfair, but certainly a club he can really make progress with. A confident lad. He's another good footballer, and pleasant. But a lot of footballers are pleasant. There's too much of they get hidden up, and so fans don't get to meet them enough and stuff. We actually get to chat to them. They're nice people to talk to, and they're only just like you and me. They just play football and they like talking about it. And but Raheem was great. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed talking to him. They're all taller than me, which I find it's strange, really.
You should be used to
Dobra
that.
isn't.
No, I don't. Dobbs might not be. No, but
You'll be all right. You'll be all right with Dobra.
Hutchie, you're normally the guy who does the players post game. Have you ever started singing Elton John songs with players post game?
Not yet. Luke doesn't strike me as an Elton John fan, so that's Mike. You've done well there.
Well, he's also given us a perfect segue there, talking about height, Hutchie, to segue into the sexy stuff, the new signings, because they've made a diminutive signing and also a tank of a signing. So let's start with the little lad, because you'll be able to see eye to eye with him, both of you, when you'll be in post game this season. Connor Chaplin, Hutchie, what a statement signing this is. Unbelievable. Yes, you see Town have signed someone from Barnsley and you think, Barnsley. Then you look, Barnsley were in the Championship playoffs last season, and he was one of their key players, and he stepped down a league into a side that didn't even make the playoffs last season in League One, because he wants to be part of this massive star-spangled revolution at Town. How exciting is this? What do you make of the Connor Chaplin signing?
Yeah, it's a great signing. Played 34 starts, I think it was, in the Championship, with goals and assists in there. Not loads, but a few. Ipswich are signing players from the Championship playoffs. I think they're taking people by surprise in the transfer market a little bit this summer. I gather that this one is kind of in the 750-ish range, which is again a good fee. They're definitely shopping in a market that is beyond where they really are. They're kind of a bottom third, bottom half Championship side in terms of their shopping list, and that's a recipe for success. They're going to have some options in these positions when all is said and done, all is shaken out. So we know that goals, assists, creativity, that was the problem last season, that they just did not make enough chances and did not score enough goals. And Cook's made it clear that the big thing to do this summer is to remedy that, and he's doing it. So the thing is, they've signed Connor Chaplin. I'm not even convinced he'll be absolutely nailed on starter. But I'm sure he probably will start games, but that's just where Ipswich are now. I'm not 100% convinced that he'll play 35 games in League One this year because of the quality that could be there by the end of the window.
I like to ask you this question every time they make a signing, particularly up front in the forward roles. Hutchie, where do you see him fitting into the team? He's another guy who's versatile, isn't he?
Yeah,
where
I don't know.
Would you play?
I don't know. He can play any of the four positions up there. So I think we'll see him in a few of them. I think given the traffic that's there, I think actually playing as the out and out striker isn't going to happen. But I think it's going to be kind of suck it and see. I think what wide would be my guess, but he's capable of playing any of them. So we will see.
I read a quote now, and I can't remember who it was from. I'm sure you'll remind me, Hutchie. That's from a manager who'd worked with Chaplin, who said he's the best finisher he's ever seen. It might even be Paul Cook, actually.
It's Paul Cook, yeah. Paul
there
Cook.
you go. Perfect. So he's brought him to town. Fantastic. Rossi, I love the fact that Ipswich Town the fans are embracing this Chequebook FC tag, which a few very, very salty fans of other clubs on social media have branded Town Chequebook FC. And it's great because we've not been in this position for years where they've been making marquee signings, making it rain all over League One, and being in a position where they can bring players in who the other teams, frankly, are spitting feathers about. You're buying the league, etc. What a position to be in.
Oh, unbelievable. And a player that I know as well. Not personally, of course, but someone I've seen, play before. He was at Portsmouth under Paul Cook, and Paul Cook's signing players he knows of, and also he probably can trust as well. And as Hutchie said, he just got into the playoffs in the Championship with Barnsley, and he's now dropping down to League One to be part of this project that Paul Cook and co are creating. And we're not spending millions. We're not, it's just smart signings. Some people will be thinking, they're spending millions there. The wages are going to be ridiculous. I think we're just being very smart with the signings. A lot of them have been free transfers. I was saying, the last few signings have been marquee signings. This is another marquee signing. When are we actually going to go? We've done 10 signings so far. I don't think any of them have been bad. Like, maybe that one isn't as great, but no, all of them I'm happy with. And it's just, Chequebook FC all the way.
Mike, obviously you of all of us, you are the most experienced, shall we say, the most mature. So you can remember the golden era, the true golden era of Town. But it's nice, isn't it, now to see Town making marquee signings again? Because we went through a period where they were scrimping and saving and working on a shoestring, and McCarthy obviously worked wonders to an extent on a budget in the Championship. But how nice is it now that we can say that Town are bringing in players that Championship sides want, let alone other teams in League One?
I'll say it like this: Ipswich Town fans deserve this.
Yeah,
they deserve this summer. They deserve everything that's going on. Cut out the noise from other whingy, whiny clubs and managers and anybody else. Ipswich Town deserve this. As Ross did say, we're not spending millions. We're not buying 5 million here and 5 million there and 6 million. This is not a Manchester City type project. This is clever management. And Cook came in and said he hated the team he was watching last season. Those exact words, and he's going to do something about it. And for once, I was lucky when obviously the Bobby Robson era, George, but I was lucky to see all that, and people walked the walk at the club. And now for the last 10 years, they've just talked the talk, and we've had 5-year plans and 10-year plans and 100-year plans, and we've had this, that, and the other. Now we've actually got someone coming in and said, "I'm changing it. It's changing. I don't care what anyone says," and the whole thing's changed. So it's great. I think the signings are very astute, because you need certain players. It's no good. You need certain players for League One. It's I haven't seen much of League One unless what I've seen in the last 2 years. Fortunately, I haven't seen much of League One, unlike the rest of us, what we've seen. But you need certain players to get you out of League One. The Championship becomes a little bit different then, and he's doing the right thing. I'm so excited for Ipswich fans. Like I said, they deserve this. They've been loyal. I mean, last night, for instance, at Colchester, 1,500 fans for a pre-season match. I don't know what the whole official attendance was. It couldn't have been more than 2,200. There was, only about 600-700 Colchester fans there. No disrespect for them for that. But I mean, the Ipswich Town fans, extraordinary. After all they've been through for the last decade. It's different. I remember us win the UEFA Cup, and that keeps you on a high for 4 years. You win the FA Cup, keeps you on a high for 5 years. We've got one playoff defeat for Norwich to think of in a decade, and still they turn out like that for so fantastic. Really looking forward to it. I think there's been some clever signings, good signings. I think, as Andy said, try and pick the team.
We're going to do that in a minute. Don't worry.
Oh, are we?
I mean, we've been here before. Obviously, I am prone to hyperbole. I say frequently I get overexcited about things, but I do feel like something very special is bubbling here at Town. The whole feeling around the club, the Mark Ashton stuff, the owners, the Ed Sheeran, the players they're signing, game changer. It feels like it could be the right place, right time for a lot of things. And it's also the right place, right time, Hutchie, for another man they've signed, a 6'3" defender from Rangers, George Edmundson. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, I like this one. It fits. you talk about the recruitment and kind of Chequebook FC and all of that. They're signing players that you can have a resale value for a start, which you can see. Then they're not dead investments. This isn't. I know we talked about very, very briefly earlier in the summer about Jermaine Defoe, about chucking money at Jermaine Defoe as kind of a marquee striker and getting in players like that. This isn't how they're doing things. They're signing players at exactly the right stages of their careers, which means they can be assets to the club now and assets to the club in the future. And Edmundson's another one of those. He's 23. He's high on potential, but maybe a little light on football in the last couple of years. He's not played too much up at Rangers, and then he's obviously had 10 games at Derby. But they had championship clubs after him. There were a good few championship clubs were really keen on him this summer, even up until Monday morning when he was on his way to Ipswich. There were championship clubs trying to, how can we stop this deal? And by that point, the answer was you can't. He's coming to Ipswich Town. He's been sold this vision, and he's up for it. So yeah, I like it. He's a proper defender, a threat in the box, and he's one that I think could be a real asset to them for some time.
The other thing I love about these signings is they're all long term. The 3-year deals. Edmundson's a 4-year deal, isn't he? Which is pretty much unheard of for Town. Incredible. The one question we've been asked most, Touchy, about this signing from the KOA Army is, and I'm sure you've been doing some digging on this, has George Edmundson got a hairy arse? Because we know that they're after a hairy arse centre-back, trademark Stuart Watson. Have we found a hirsute posterior for the centre of defence?
I've not checked. I've not been able to source this yet. We've not spoken to him. But I don't think he fits the Watson criteria for this particular. No, that's not. I don't think this is quite what Stu was thinking. I think he might have to just be a very good central defender. Yeah, I think the hairy arsed one might still be
to come.
Might still be to come, or it might not be to come. I don't think it's as necessarily nailed on that they'll go and do that real experienced centre half. But I think the hairy one might still be floating out there. We'll be all right, wouldn't we? If he's just really good at defending and that.
Well, yeah, but it's not the full package, is it? If he's only got the hairy back. Anyway, I digress. So 10 in, Hutchie. We've talked the whole summer, it feels like, about how many more they need, how many more they're going to get. With 10 through the door, how are you feeling about things now? Are there still holes you'd like to see them fill before the big KO?
Yeah. And I think the left back one will get filled. I think there's still a real hope that Hayden Coulson will be the second left back in to give Matt Penny that competition that he maybe needs. I would feel like if Coulson was signed, he'd relatively quickly become the starting player there. But yeah, I think that will happen, and I think there will be more. I think there'll be 2 or 3 more even after that. But by doing what they've done in the last 24 hours, I would say they've probably got themselves up. As long as Lee Evans is fit to start the season, and everything's pointing to that being the case, I would feel like they've got to a point where they've built a team now. They've built a squad now. There's still some depth to be found, but they've got a team and they've got a squad, and that was always going to be a real challenge this summer, turning over so many players. But I think they've done that. They've done that really well since Ashton's come in. They must be averaging a signing less than every 5 days, a new signing. It's quite good, that, to be fair.
He's been busy, lad, hasn't he, Ashton? I don't know where he finds the time to maintain his exceptional beard trimming regime. We'll come on to that in due course. Mike, we're talking about new signings here and incomings to the club. We must mention one departure that's been confirmed this week. Teddy Bishop, formerly the next big thing, with the club since he's 7 years old. He's left. He's one of numerous kind of crown jewels who have departed in the summer. That obviously the players that Cook was talking about wanting to get out of the club. He's gone to a League One rival in Lincoln. What do you make of the whole Teddy Bishop scenario? Are you sorry to see him go? Do you think he's going to go on to big things at Lincoln?
I think the likes of Teddy Bishop, Andre Dezelle, Jack Langster, I think they needed to go. not because they're not good players. They're all very good players. I feel a little sorry for them, to be honest. I think they've been at a club treading water during some of their most formative years, really. I think the management structure above them has not been good. I don't think they've had... I just think things haven't been right for them as individual players, because they're all very good players. I think Teddy Bishop's obviously he's a very popular lad at Ipswich Town. Fans love him. I mean, they're not delighted to see him go. I'm not delighted to see him go. I just think for him, the likes of him and Andre, they need that new challenge. And I'd love to see them really kick on now, because I think just a fresh... Sometimes you can be in one place for too long, a football club particularly, and just get used to too much. And so I'm not surprised he's gone. I'm not surprised anyone's gone, quite frankly. I'm surprised, well, they've nearly all gone. So it's hardly surprising. I wish him all the best. I think he's still got, if he can keep injury free, he's a fine footballer, just like Gazelle is, and young Jack, of course, as well. They're all good footballers. So best wishes to Teddy. I think he's joined a good club in Lincoln City. I think he'll enjoy it up there. And he just sometimes you just need to get away and do something a bit different, especially in sports clubs, whether it's football, rugby, whatever, cricket, but particularly football. Especially you've been there since you were 7. That's a long time. Being at football clubs since you were 7, crikey. But I think he's done brilliant. I think he's done brilliant to get a move. I think it's the right thing to do. I know you probably don't have much of a choice, but no, it's the right thing to do. I wish him well.
Roscoe, echo that. Are you sad to see Teddy go?
I'm not really sad, but I think it's time for him to go. I echo all of what Mike said. I think it was pretty much written on the wall really for Teddy, and on those sort of plays, it doesn't really fit Paul Cook's system. And been at a club since 7 years of age. That's all he's known. And sometimes that's what you need as a footballer. Sometimes you need to go out there and find another path. And Lincoln City, what a great club to go to. Mark Abberton, what a great manager. We'll see Teddy twice this season, home and away. I'm sure he'll get a good reception at Portman Road if he's not injured. Hopefully he'll be injury free. Sorry to bring that up, but that is another worry. Is he over those injuries yet? But I look forward to see how he does in League One this season for Lincoln.
I think September the 18th, Town travel to Lincoln, and then it's New Year's Day that Teddy comes back to Portman Road. So that could be a bit spicy on New Year's Day with the moving period over Christmas in terms of the promotion shake-up, and you'd expect Town and Lincoln both to be there. Right then, boys, let's talk about Millwall a little bit this weekend, and mostly, Hutchie, I want to talk about what you touched on earlier, that this weekend's lineup is pretty much going to be what we're going to see on opening day against Morecambe, with the players through the door, obviously, as it stands. Of all the options that Paul Cook now has available to him, what's going to be your starting 11 going into the season?
Hladky undoubtedly in goal. Kane Vincent-Young at right back. I'll put Matt Penny at left back because there is no other choice at the moment. If Coulson arrives early this week, I imagine he would have a chance there, but that's fine. Edmundson will start, I'm sure. And then I don't know on this one. I don't know which way I'd go.
Do you want the kind of veteran of Toto? Is that the toss-up?
Possibly, yeah. I think I probably would go with Toto as well as Wolfie's done. I think I probably would go with Toto at this stage. In front of those two would be, if fit, Evans and Harper, undoubtedly. Piggott will be one of the strikers. Wes Burns will start as things stand. And then the other two positions are really interesting. I think Scott Fraser should start. It's just whether they use him wide or through the middle with Chaplin as one of the wide players. A lot will depend on where I guess where Chaplin and even Fraser is in terms of pre-season and all of this. But there's a couple of question marks in there, but I'd say 7 or 8 of them are completely nailed on.
Where do you stand on the centre back debate, Mike? Obviously, Edmundson, you'd imagine, has been brought in to be a starter. So then the choice is: do you go with kind of the grizzled, battle-worn veteran in terms of Toto, or the kind of slightly better footballer but kind of less experienced Luke Wolfenden? What would you do there?
Well, seeing as me and Luke were singing Elton John songs last night, I'd go with Wolfenden. No, that's a little. I mean, Andy's right. That is a real tricky one because Toto hasn't. well, a couple of the games against Palace, he didn't do a lot wrong, and he is quite capable of producing really strong form, and he's bigger, a bit stronger. But Wolf is composed and calm at times. But it's Morecambe is match day. That is it. This is League One now. This is the league campaign. This is not pre-season anymore. You can't afford to make mistakes. But I'm going to sit on the fence, I'm afraid, because I really don't know. I mean, Wolverhampton also. I mean, my heart would say Wolfie, but I think my head sort of half says Toto, because I think some part of me would like to see Toto get a real run with somebody alongside him. He feels confident. Because I think he can still. He's a good defender still, and he's strong. And he seems to have his mojo back a little bit. I was reading a little bit last couple. He's sort of all over the place, a bit down, and things weren't right. And watched him yesterday in the warm ups and stuff. He's bouncing about. He looks like he really wants to be here. He loves being here. So perhaps keep him on that sort of that good feel. But it's not a bad choice. I mean, look, we're talking Wolf, Doyle, and Salah. This is not a bad choice either way. It's just, I think Cook's got a lot of choices to make, to be honest, and formation and everything. And if Coulson gets in the building this week, and say someone else gets in the building this week, I mean, goodness, it's exciting times.
It's a really difficult one. Like we saw last season, Toto did have his mojo back. Him and James Wilson were actually a really good central defensive partnership. And then we've also seen the difficulties when you're playing Luke Wolfenden and Mark McGuinness as a younger pairing. Admittedly, McGuinness was that significantly less experienced, I guess, than Edmundson and even Wolfenden at this point. So it's not quite the same scenario painting itself there. But I don't know. I think I'm probably the same as Mike. There's the heart saying that Luke Wolfenden, because he could be the future of the football club. I'd hope that Luke Wolfenden's got years and years left in an Ipswich Town shirt, and I'd love to see him come good because he's clearly got the ability. But just, I don't know, maybe right now, like Mike says, the battle truly begins. Go with the more rugged, more senior centre back with Edmundson. But it's not a bad position to be in. There are options here.
An embarrassment of riches. Rossi, I know you don't really like talking about lineups and stuff because you think that should just be left to the manager. But anything to agree or disagree with there?
Left to the manager and the professionals, Andy and of course Mike. Is Toto not the hairy-ass defender that we need?
Well,
so
you'd have to. I mean, there's only one man who can answer that question. He's sunning himself in Cornwall with a pasty in one hand and a doom bar in the other at the moment. So, and we're not going to see him before the big kickoff. So we'll have to address that when he returns. But you've obviously seen every pre-season game so far, Rossi. We've talked about the new signings and kind of Dobra coming through. Is there anyone else who's impressed you over the course of the pre-season? You think maybe deserves a little look going into the season?
I don't think he deserves a look, but I think he deserves some praises. The young lad Cameron Humphreys, he's really impressed, and for him to be chucked in and starting both of the last pre-season games is well done to him. And I think he's still very lightweight, but I think he's done himself proud in that middle of the park. Maybe he'll be in for a shout for the Pat Johns Trophy games and the Cup games, and you never know, that he may be on the bench here and there. But yeah, I think he's done himself some justice there, and once again, it shows a pathway that we do have. We've still got the youngsters. I know we're bringing all these marquee signings, but we've also got a very good academy. And I'm sure that Paul Cook will still let that have a pathway there of the youngsters, coming through. And definitely with Dobra, as Hutchie said, he's definitely upped his game. I feel he's more dribbling is definitely improved. He's got a little bit stronger. I don't think he can get any stronger because I don't think he's going to grow anymore because I think he's going to be that height for the rest of his life. But that's just his game, isn't it? And I'm looking forward to him really to kick on this year in League One, and hopefully he gets a chance.
I want to ask you as well before we move on to something very different, Rossi. Previously, your boy was a Welsh winger called Gwion Edwards. We all got very excited about him, particularly on his debut against Blackburn when he did that flick we still see now as on the highlights. We now have a new right-sided Welsh winger called Wes Burns, who scored an absolute cracker of a goal last night. He's pacey as well. Where do we stand on Wes as an upgrade over your boy Gwion?
Well, I know Stu and Andy are not very happy with me that I'm getting over these players very quickly. But Wes Burns, what a beautiful man as well. Look, he looks like a proper model footballer, doesn't he? With the hair and everything, and he can score free kicks. At least he's better than Gwion with the set pieces because we won't talk about the Fleetwood game. That those free kicks and corners were not great, were they? But although I spoke to a Wigan fan, and apparently Guion has been on fire in training for Wigan, so that could be a good signing for Wigan. And when we do play Wigan, maybe Guion will prove Paul Cook wrong. But no, Wes Burns, I think he's an upgrade because he's more versatile and he can play at right back, or right wing back. Guion Edwards, I do not ever want to see Guion Edwards at right back ever again for any team. So yeah.
We need to find out. Sorry, Hutchie.
He plays with his head up a bit more, which was Guion's problem. His head was down. He looked to beat a man. Fair play. He did try and beat players, but his head was down. He would often kind of bundle into their heels and lose the ball and head in the wrong. But Burns plays with his head up. Like, there was a moment. It was late in the game last night where this is a 3-3 pre-season game where you'd normally expect just walking pace and just like, yeah, we've had our fun. But he was driving forward into the Colchester half just with his head up, and the ball wasn't quite there. I think it was for Norwood he was looking for, but played with his head up. And if you're playing with your head up as a winger, you're in with a shout, I think, because that's just where Guion fell down for me. Just head down and just not seeing what was around him.
Hopefully we get a chance to talk to Wes in depth about his hair care regime, what kind of conditioner he uses, what kind of product he puts through it, how he gets it looking quite so much like a lion's mane. Fantastic. And of course, when we're talking about hair care, boys, we have to talk about our sponsor, manscaped.com. Now then, I've been looking forward to this since I knew Mike was going to be on this podcast.
Don't put it too close. Put it too...
This, my friends, is the new, if you're watching on video, you can see is the new Lawnmower 4.0 testicular trimmer from Manscaped. That's the power of it. There we go. It's a new and upgraded. Formerly, we had the 3.0. Manscaped have now sent us the 4.0. And I must say, I'm a big fan. It looks a little bit like a spaceship. It's kind of more modern, I would say. And it's got electromagnetic induction charging, which basically means there's no plug in the bottom of it. You just whack it in the thing, and it's very whizzy. I've got, I like things like that, boys. I'm shallow and easily distracted by shiny things like a magpie. But we've talked in depth, Mike, on this podcast. You won't have heard of it because obviously you don't listen to it unless you're on it. About our particular sack shaving regime, and I'm fascinated to know, as a man of, as I say, slightly more experience and more mature, how you feel about manscaping.
How do I feel about manscaping?
Yes.
I was born well before the year 2000, so I think my thoughts on manscaping. That's all I will say.
Just remember, we are sponsored by Manscaped. Thank you very much.
I'm not dissing their products. I'm sure their products are absolutely outstanding. I have no doubt. A Manscaped 4.0i, whatever it is outstanding for people who wish to use that, and that's absolutely fine. Personally, I'm trying to grow a little bit of hair back on the back of my head, let alone worry about shaving it off all over the place. So,
I wondered where you were going with that. Yeah,
exactly. So if anyone's got any products that could help produce a little bit more hair on the back of my head rather than shaving it off my testicles, I'll be quite happy. So there you go.
There you go, Manscaped. There's a challenge. Can you help Mike grow some hair back instead of helping him to trim it off?
But for the sake of corporate, Manscaped, I'm sure, absolutely outstanding. And go to their online services and buy their products now.
Exactly. Yeah, the market leader in testicle trimmers, personal shavers, intimate groomers, whatever you want. And it's not just about shaving the old boys. Obviously, you can use this to shave pretty much any hair you want. And it's not also, as Hutchie's made the point, just because it's called Manscaped doesn't really mean it has to be men. Just as useful for women. So just a reminder, Lawnmower 4.0 out now, and you can use the code KOA at manscaped.com for 20% off and free delivery, which I will be doing because I've yet to get my hands on a weed whacker, and I very much need that now as I approach my experienced years, shall we say, Mike, and ear and nose hair is becoming something more of an issue. So there you go, boys. I've really enjoyed the pod today. It's been great to have a chat. Before we go, I want to tease a few things, Mike. You mentioned it earlier, alluded to it earlier. You showed the cover of the Kings of Anglia magazine with Fear the Wolf. What a great idea for a front page. I wonder who came up with that. So yeah, you are the editor of the Kings of Anglia magazine. It's coming back. It went into sleep mode during COVID, like a lot of things did. But talk to us a little bit about that. When's it coming back? What can we expect?
Yeah, KOA. I can't remember what number it is. I think it's number 14. It's back in September. We'll be out in the middle of September. We've got a couple more publications, September and Christmas editions. The KOA magazine has proved hugely popular. And obviously, unfortunately, lockdown, COVID, etc. Saw the end of it for at the end of 2020, at the start of 2020. But it's coming back. Well, we're still in the process of putting things together, but we've got lots of exciting stuff coming up. We're going to have a big feature to lead it all off. We'll have the usual. I mean, Portman Pete is back, which of course you'd be pleased to know. And even your Dear Judy letters, if you wish to get a letter into Dear Judy, we've already had a couple come in. There's the big quiz. We've got a great feature from a big town fan who also supports a Spanish club. His Spanish club is his second club. I'm sure there's many people out there who have second clubs. Not always a Spanish one though. But also we've got I'm going to be on Chaplow Day as well. We might reminisce a bit on Chaplow Day. I'm sure we'll remember that. But lots of new features coming up with the new boys. Still in the process of putting together.
So Portman Pete's still around, is he? I kind of hope COVID might have finished him off, but
no,
he's still with us. He's like a cockroach, the lad, isn't he, Portman Pete?
Yeah, he was a bit difficult about his new contract as well. But I've managed to sort of beat him out of him, and we've sorted something, so that's good.
I would be fascinated to know, Kings of Anglia listeners, KOA Army, when you read Kings of Anglia magazine, I really want to know what you make of Portman Pete, because it's something that me and Mike have shared views on. So let us know about that. So that's coming out in September. That's something to look forward to. And another thing to look forward to, it's going to be out a lot sooner than that, Roscoe. Something that you're working on at the moment, a bit of a passion project, League One Lowdown. Numerous videos coming out. Tell us about that, because I really like this. It's really good.
Oh God, it's been hard. It's been hard work. I've spoken to a lot of journalists, podcasters, and fans from each League One club. But it's been good to get the insight on the lowdown. That's the word, not insight. Lowdown on the signings, what they think for the coming season, what they think of Town, of course, with the Chequebook FC. Although that's not been mentioned yet. We'll have to wait and see. I've got a few more clubs.
Have you spoken to Portsmouth yet? Because they're the ones that seem to be.
I have spoken to Portsmouth, but that was before we made the last 3 signings. So maybe they've changed their mind. But also, I've tried my best to pick fans who are sensible.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It seems to be Portsmouth, which is where a lot of the whinging and whining is coming from, particularly that term Chequebook FC, which I think Town should embrace. It's nice. Before we go, boys, I just want to shout out a couple of the KOA Army, which I keep forgetting to do. Who've sent us messages. Number one, Chris Hackett, one of our American listeners, who shared a picture of him with a flag at the Phoenix Rising game with the Ipswich Town North American Supporters Club group, which was retweeted by Brett Johnson, which is nice. And Chris is saying, Hutchie, I'm not saying this should get me friend of the show status. I'm just saying it should get me on the shortlist. So there you go. That's something for you to consider. I know you take a very dim view of people outright asking for friend of the show status.
Well,
there you go. And the other guy I want to shout out is Ed Nolleth, I believe his name is. He says, "Hi guys, new follower to the pod last week after listening to the fantastic interview with Mark Ashton. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that. Hutchie and Stewie sat down with the bearded one and talked all things Town. Very, very emotive and emotional and connecting to the why. One of the most listened to things we've ever done. Go back and listen to that." And he says, "It should be the most exciting season for a long time. I'm a Suffolk boy, born and bred, and now residing in New Zealand. I'm a massive Town fan and former season ticket holder. The new home shirt has been ordered and is in transit. I'll be wearing it with pride and a smile for the first time in a few years. He'd love a shout out on our next pod." There you go, Ed. Shout out, Ed. And he wants to know if I'm your longest distance listener. So that's New Zealand. I know, however, from previous experience, we've had listeners from all over the world. We've had ones in South Korea. We've had ones in the Caribbean. Australia clearly is a big hotbed of KOA listeners. So it's inevitable one day, boys, we're going to do a KOA live pod world tour. We can go around all those venues. Phil Madison Square Garden, for example, in New York. I'm sure we could do that. So yeah, there you go, Ed. Thanks for getting in touch, and please do continue to interact with us on social media. Follow us across all our social medias. Kings of Anglia on YouTube. That's a big one. We've just broken the 2K mark there, and we're putting out video exclusive stuff. A lot more this season. Ross has always mentioned the League One Lowdown. There's a lot more to come there. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes because it helps us with the visibility in the charts. Boys, have you got anything else you want to mention?
No, not really. I think it's been an exciting pre-season, and I think the Millwall game will give us even more, much more to talk about. I think that Town fans really, as I said, deserve this summer. They deserve this excitement. They deserve what's coming. I don't think it's all just going to drop into place. I don't think we're going to suddenly beat Morecambe 5-0 and then Newport 10-0 and so on and so on and so on. But there's some really solid foundations there now.
Hutchie, anything to mention?
No other business for me at this stage.
Rossi, you just vanished oddly, and then you've come back. What are you up to?
I pressed the X button by accident, but I think that's the perfect way to end it. So, ciao.
Yeah, so as I say, do follow us all across social media. The boys, Mike, Andy and Roscoe will be at the Millwall game this weekend, so follow it with them. And then next week's going to be a big week, probably a 2-pod week, because obviously we have to have some sort of Millwall reaction pod, any other signings, and then we'll bring you the big season preview podcast. You don't want to miss that, where we tell you all what we think might happen this season. I don't know if Stu's going to join us from Cornwall. I don't know if maybe he wants a few minutes away from the in-laws. We shall find out. But until then, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Millwall game if you're going, and keep supporting Chequebook FC. Come on, you Blues!
See ya.